Okay, hello everyone, and as Julia already said, welcome to our Aalto Open Days webinar session. Today we are going to discuss what it is like to study master's degree in the School of Arts, Design and Architecture. As you already said, you can send questions to the panelists in the chat. Please keep these questions related to our study life and study experience, and save your admission questions for Thursday, where the webinar with the admission services will be hosted. And you can also contact them at admissions@aalto.fi. And apart from that, they also have their own Unibody channel, so you can chat with them over there as well. And who are we? I'm Milica. I will be your host today. I'm also a student in architecture, in Masters in Architecture here on Aalto University. I'm on my second year, and I have been working with the squad for past, now it's already 2 years. And my panelists for today are Valentin, Francesco, and Michal. And now they will tell you something about themselves, for example, where they're coming from and what is your field of studies.
Okay, I can start. So I'm Valentin, and I study fashion design at the masters at Aalto, and I just started my second year here. And yeah, I also moved to Helsinki from Berlin last year just to study here. Yeah, that's about me.
I will continue. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. And my name is Francesco. I'm 22. I'm from Italy, and I just moved here in Helsinki this year to start my master's. I'm doing my master's in visual communication design. And yeah, it's been very nice, and I'm really happy to be here.
And I'm Michael. I'm now a third-year master's student in creative sustainability, and I did my minor also at IDBM. Yeah, and I'm originally from Germany. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, now we can move forward. So first topic of today is studies. And it's good to know that Aalto is home to unique study paths. So our first question of the day is, why did you choose to study in Aalto University? So Francesco, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can start. So of course there are many reasons why I decided to study here. One of them, of course, is the reputation of the school. I felt like the more I was looking into the program and in the university, the more the information I got, the more I got convinced about it. Like, it felt like a nice place to study. It also felt very international and full of stimuli that could get me going with the design process. And I also already in the past had been in Finland, and I really loved the country and the culture behind it. So I wanted to go back and do my master's here for these reasons. But also another main reason was the fact that I could, I feel like I'm really free in my path of study to choose what I want to do, and like to get more creative or more academic, depending on the courses that I subscribe to. So I can really decide my path personally. So I really like this about Aalto.
Thank you, Francesco and Valentin. How about you?
Well, I started to look into options of where to go to masters. Like, I knew I didn't want to stay in Berlin because I felt like I wanted to move around a little, and then I checked the website of Business of Fashion, and they make they make every year a list of the best fashion schools, and they rank them with different ways of looking at them. And then I basically just applied for the ones that fitted my needs, and Aalto was, I think, on maybe it was the fourth last or before the year before last year, and it was also like a big thing that the masters are in English.
Mm-hmm.
And as an EU student, you don't have to pay you don't have to pay study fees, so that's also a big plus. But I would say, to summarize, mainly the reputation was the first thing that I was drawn to. and then yeah, also the students from my department often go and win competitions, and that seemed like an impressive thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I heard that like Vogue visited our school of fashion design. I'm not sure if it's true, but it was super cool. I actually found an article recently for student works. Yeah. And Michael, how about you?
Yeah, so me, it was also like more like the study program that hooked me, that I also applied for. So I also like kind of like searched whole Europe for like nice programs that I can do after my bachelor's that kind of give me a bit more sense of purpose and impact in my life. So like creative sustainability really struck out. So that was like the first thing that really hooked me. But then also, as the other two said, like I realized that the art school has that crazy high ranking.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they're also like just really good at marketing themselves, like, and all the projects that are going on, also the sustainability related ones. So that definitely was a factor. Yeah, and like seeing all that, I was really hoping to, you know, try myself out there, go outside my comfort zone, also build things like you see on the photo, which I then also did, for example. Yeah, so all that basically.
Okay, thank you. We can go to the next question, and that is, what is the best part about studying in Aalto in your program? It's your picture, Michael. So would you like to start?
Yeah, so I just have like two things. Like the first is like opportunities. That's probably the biggest factor for me. Like in the studies, for example, there's like all those possibilities to get in contact with companies, organizations, interesting people. Then you know, like, because it's such a like so many schools in one school, basically you get in touch with so many interesting students from other fields that are also having, except for example, a sustainability agenda in their mind. Then you can start up something. But yeah, then like, for example, the photo, like something that really also gives a lot of place for opportunities is like those kind of hackathons, for example, student initiatives that are happening a lot at Aalto. So yeah, they give you a lot of possibilities to go networking and to, you know, reach out to yeah, your next potential teammate, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the photo, that's the series hackathon, and that was our winning project there. Yeah.
Amazing. And how about you, Valentin?
Well, on one hand, it's like a very privileged little bubble that you get into, but like I would say the best part about this is the actual studies for me. Like we do have very well structured classes in the fashion department, and I always feel like they really do add like 90% of the classes I take add like actual something to my skills. So that's a pretty good feeling.
Great to hear that. And Francesca, how about you?
Well, I would say also something similar to Michael, because like I think the best part of studying out is the amount of possibilities and insight like that you can get, and the fact that there is always the possibility to explore some field and like this multidisciplinarity. But I think also the fact that there is many student-driven activities. Students are always active, are always doing something, and you have hundreds really possibilities to do things, and you feel like you're always doing something worthy, and you're never like without nothing to do. You know, you have always some impulses and stimuli. So that's for sure the number one
Mhm.
thing.
And what made you want to study your field, for example?
Well, I was already at a bachelor in this kind of field, like I did in communication design, but with a completely different approach that I got in Italy. And what made me decide to study in visual communication design here at Aalto it was the fact that I wanted to continue pursuing this field, but with a different approach. And Aalto University's programs in general have a very different approach than probably most of other universities. And in my case, it had like a more free approach, as I was saying before, that I could really shape my path. So for sure it is.
Okay, thank you. So, Valentin, would you like to continue?
Yes, of course. Well, I have like a very cheesy answer to that. I was 9 years old and someone explained it to me that, or like it became clear to me somehow that imagining clothes is a job. And then I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So that was actually pretty much it. And ever since I have always wanted to do fashion design. It's yeah, I did a bachelor in fashion design as well, so it was pretty straightforward for me to do a master's in that field as well.
Oh, I love it. We had these stories in our bachelor webinars as well, like from little kids up to now. And Michael, how was it for you?
Like when I planned the answer, like when I wrote the answer, I actually didn't think as much deep as Valentin did, but yeah, actually for me it came completely random studying design because like in high school I was in a bit of a, like I didn't know where to go, and back then I had a girlfriend who studied medicine. I was like, yeah, I want to study medicine for sure, I want to do it as well. But my grades were just not good enough. But then at one point, like at some party, like some friend said I make those nice photos and I should apply to this university in Würzburg in Germany. So I did, and then I kind of slid into design. And then like while doing it, while studying, I found more and more interesting things, and like why design can be such a helpful thing. And I found a lot of purpose for myself, and I expanded that with studying in Aalto. Trying to, you know, yeah, also like gain a bit of a different angle to design, different methods. I think like, especially at Aalto now with like having like giving design like all those meaningful projects to do, working together with other fields. And me like kind of being able how my qualification can be leveraged to something that's like truly helpful, like to society, to the environment. It's like really a great experience actually.
I love how different your stories are. It's amazing to hear. So can you tell us more about what are your studies like? For example, what kind of courses are there? Do you have seminars, exercise? Is it more like group work or individual work? And also, how flexible are your studies?
I can start this one. Well, it is both very flexible and not that flexible at the same time. But since it's a master's degree, it's very individual. Like everyone's studies are looking quite different. And I noticed that there's like these periods of the year where we do a lot, and it's very demanding, and then there's like periods where it's like a downtime. So it has like it's a very seasonal. Like during the dark months, everyone's like doing things all the time because it's like, what else would you do? It's dark outside. There's nothing to do. Yeah, and we spend a lot of time here that time, or like during the winter months.
Yeah, you actually spend a lot of time actually in school facilities, for example. Like
yeah, like we didn't even have proper Corona lockdown because most of our courses are very hands-on. So we needed to use the studio, so we were allowed in. It is very weird to me how like busy it is at the moment, because my first year here, like no one was allowed in, just the people who had to use the facilities, and we had to use the facilities for almost all our courses.
I'm so jealous. And Francesco, how is it for you?
Yeah, I was also thinking it's also, yeah, also for me, for this first month it felt like very like free and independent study. Like you can choose your own path, as I already said, but at the same time, you like, at least for my course, I don't know if it's every course, but we have some compulsory studies, then some like courses that we have to choose from, and then some electives that you can completely choose any course from any faculty or even other universities to complete your own degree. So it's definitely very free to experiment. And while thinking about like how academic or practical and hands-on it is, I feel like it depends on the period. This first period that has been more academic, I would say. I have one course that is more practical, but the others are more about like thinking about my practice and like reshaping it and trying to do some critical thinking. That is also very interesting. But for example, next period is going to be more hands-on and like with credit courses, and then there is workshop periods that are like 1 week where you mostly do practical stuff. So I would say it depends on the time of the year and on the period and on the courses, but it can be very, very practical and more academic and like about thinking and writing essays and stuff.
Yeah, same in architecture. And
Yeah.
Michael, how is it for you in creative sustainability?
Yeah, actually pretty similar to what Francesca just said. Like the first half year was like very research based, like a lot of academic stuff, and like second, third semester were like more like conceptual work, but like a lot of like very project based. So we had like a lot of independent teamwork and stuff. That's actually something that a lot of courses have, like the very, very huge emphasis on like independent work, teamwork. Yeah, but like sadly, like my master's was a bit more conceptual and more like, you know, like not that hands-on that I wanted it to be actually, or I just took the wrong courses. And then of course there was also Corona when I came, so everything was closed. I was not an essential worker, like for example, Valentin, essential studio worker. But now that I do my master's thesis, it's like the only thing that's left. I'm really planning to have that part where I really make use of all the workshops and stuff. And it's really nice, at least in the arts department, they give you such a huge freedom with your thesis. So that's actually something that I'm really grateful of. So let's see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, and one also technical question is your attendance mandatory in School of Arts? Because for me, it's usually 95 or 90% in architecture. So how is it for you guys?
Like how many do
you have to
classes you can
attend?
miss?
Yeah, every single lecture.
Not much there. In the fashion department, they are pretty strict about it, like to be there. But also like the courses themselves are very, very like the structure of them is very light. So for example, I have this week I have 2 tutorings of an intensive course, and the rest is kind of like up to me of when I attend. How much is not really up to me, because I do all end up spending a lot of time here, but that's technically 2 hours booked of my week, and the rest of the time I decide when I come into the studios or when I leave. So I think they are officially open from 9 to 8, but we stay after 8.
There is always light on in that like section, like where your studio is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we live here.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can discuss also, are there any multidisciplinary opportunities in your studies, or have you experienced like taking courses from like another departments or something?
Very
much. I think, you can go on if you want to, like.
I can. You can also go if you want.
You can both answer it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, so at the fashion department, there's 2 courses that are very, very good in this regard. One is Chem Arts. They are basically teaching us some very basic things about chemistry, and specifically biomaterials, and then we get to like go into the lab and play around with them, because like the idea is that designers are often using or thinking with materials that they already know, that are usually not sustainable enough. And this course is amazing. I stumbled upon something with my teammate that might possibly turn into a startup. And there was someone in recent years who was a designer and then came up with like an alternative way of packaging cucumbers without plastic on them, which is pretty amazing. And then we also have this course called Variable Technology, and there we are basically taught about like we did like a teeny bit of programming, and what's amazing about that is that you don't have to have any knowledge of chemistry or programming when you start that. You just kind of like join it into your own projects or your own things. But these are like chemistry and programming are things that I was usually very scared of. Like now I hated it in high school. I don't want to deal with it, but I did actually end up really enjoying them without having to like go deep into the theoretical sides of them.
And Francesco, can you continue now?
Yeah, no, I would just wanted to have a really short answer that I feel like there is a lot of multidisciplinary opportunities. I now, like, since I'm in my first month, I didn't have that much opportunities to explore them, but I know that there is also programs that like go on very many faculties and that you can apply to different faculties, but also different universities courses as electives, like with some specific path, like some specific requirements. You can choose as an elective courses a course, for example, from University of Helsinki, and just add it to your study plan. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Michael, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I was pressing the wrong buttons. But yeah, so I mean, creative sustainable is kind of like, you know, the how can I say, the epitome of multidisciplinarity. So like for our studies, we have like our advanced studies, we have like electives, but also stuff that we have to take, and we actually it's mandatory for us to have like a certain count of ECTS from other schools. Which in my case would be Department of Architecture, Department of Art and Media, School of Business, Chemical Engineering, and yeah, Built Environment. So like I think it's like 20-30 CTS that we have to do from those schools. And then yeah, we also have like I took like also the course Designing Biomaterials, for example, which was super interesting. Yeah, like some team of us, they also did like some sustainable packaging for cucumbers and stuff, instead of this weird plastic packaging. Yeah, but then also like, you know, like you can learn a lot of like about forests and biomass, plant biomass in the School of Engineering. Like Finland is full of forests, so you'll hear a lot about forests there. Yeah, so there's a lot. There's also a lot of School of Business, but also like architecture, for example, you can learn about green area planning and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of opportunities to go overboard and try everything out, basically.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear that there are so many opportunities. I don't even have time to do everything that I want. Yeah, because of the course load. So can someone shortly explain how the academic year looks like here in Aalto, like regarding semesters and periods? And Francesco?
Yeah. So basically, I was also very new to this system, and basically here in Aalto, but I think in general in Finland, I'm not sure, but like the semester is divided, like the academic year is divided in 2 semesters. One is like the fall semester and the spring one, and the fall semester is divided in 2 periods that are like this 6 weeks. Period of time where you get the courses, and courses usually last just 1 period, or it can last for 2 periods. And so you get 2 periods in the fall and 3 periods in the spring. And then there is evaluation weeks that are basically this week that are between every period, where you get like exams, I guess, but for arts is mostly like workshop week. Like you use that week to do this intensive 1 week courses. And yeah, and then of course there is like summer period in the between every academic year. And most of the courses, as I said, are lasting one period, but they can last in even 2 periods. And you can manage your credits. So as like the idea is that you have 30 credits every semester and 60 credit every academic year. But you can manage them as you want, basically. And in your masters, you should arrive to 120 in the whole 2 years.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me, and I guess for rest of us, because it's like School of Arts. And then maybe Valentin can share with us how your typical day looks like, apart from living in School of Fashion.
Yeah, so it's I wouldn't say I have a typical day. Like all of my days are like scheduled very weirdly. I aim to wake up at 9. But it's good that that I have a lot of freedom with the schedule, because I have a weird sleeping pattern. So I usually actually prefer to work from 12ish on until like 9 or 10 in the evening, instead of like starting early in the morning. But basically, when it's like an intensive like September, October times, I would spend like a good 9 to 10 hours in university every day.
Okay, and next we have Francesca's schedule.
Yeah, I also put like kind of a schedule, but now I'm realizing that I don't even have any more now in this next week's this kind of schedule, but because it's always changing, every day is different. But yeah, I try to like incorporate some of the tasks that I usually do. Like I wake up pretty early usually. I aim to do workouts every day or like every 2 days, but I never basically do all the time. But yeah, that's the goal. And before going to class, and then I usually have classes now in the morning. Sometimes it's afternoons, and I have the free morning. When I have class in the morning or in the afternoon, I usually do lunch here at the university. I wrote, for example, Keep Study, because it's the place where I spend most of my lunches. It's a vegan student restaurant here on campus. There are many other student restaurants, but usually I go there. And then in the other free time that I have before or after classes, I study a bit, I work, or I like manage the things that I have to do. And then of course in the free time I hang out with friends, I do activities, go to visit the city, etc. I usually leave my evening and night to just rest and chill, cook, having friends over for dinner or stuff like this, just to relax and unwind before going to bed.
Thank you so much for sharing your typical day with us. And now we can move forward to the second topic of the day, which is campus. So Otaniemi campus is surrounded by nature, and it's only 10-minute metro ride away from Helsinki city center. And now you can tell us more about the campus, what the campus is like, about its location and size, and also what school facilities we have around that you can use. So
I would say the student restaurants are a very big one. Food is super expensive in Finland, at least compared to other European countries that I lived in. And there is this student lunches that costs €3.20 for like a very good, very big meal. And they have a lot of those restaurants around here. So that is one big thing. That's also often an extra motivator to come to campus and work here. And there's a free outdoor gym. That's nice in that 5 months where you can be outside. And I mean it is very well equipped. I feel it to be incredibly quiet. I'm a city person, so I lived on campus a little bit, and to me that was a bit too isolated. But if someone enjoys peace and quiet, then it's actually very good. Well, peace and quiet if you live in the right buildings, because some of the buildings are incredibly loud. So that's good to keep in mind when you apply for things. apply for student housing on campus. There's also a library that you can use 24/7 to go in and study there. So that's also nice. I don't know, what did I forget? Someone jump in.
I think like the thing that really impressed me, it was the fact that, I don't know, coming from my previous university, I had this idea of campus just being like some buildings where you get classes and yeah, maybe one restaurant for lunch and that's it. While here it's a whole neighborhood break basically. Like you could stay, like people that live on campus usually are staying there most of the time because they have all the facilities, like shopping mall with everything, like from the pharmacy to supermarkets to everything is around the university. So it's very easy to do anything that you need on your daily basis. And that is also something that makes it easier to like basically spend more time on campus and work on campus, eat lunch, and then spend more time to work and do your things, but also relax, do sports. You can basically do anything you want in the area. It's like a whole little city, like a neighborhood where you can get everything. So it's really nice, and there is offer for every, like there is many, like not many, but like more than one supermarket and around like 10 or a bit less student restaurants. Like there is a lot of choice, so it's nice.
Yeah, and Michael, you wanted to add something as well?
Yeah, like first of all, it's interesting, Valentina, do you think that in Helsinki there's a lot going on?
I did not say there's a lot going on in Helsinki. I just said more than here.
I feel like there is much more than I was expecting. Like coming from Milan, I was expecting Helsinki to be much more quiet, but it's active, like on events and stuff, at least during the summer. I don't know about winter, but
yeah, that's true. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, campus, like what I like also very much is like just the proximity to nature. I mean, I have to say they're building more and more buildings on campus, which makes sense when there's more and more students coming, but you know, it's at half island and you're basically surrounded by a nice coastline and bird watching towers and everything. In winter, it's incredible. You can, like, when the sea is frozen, you can just like walk over the ice to Helsinki if you want to. So that's something you should definitely try out. Yeah, but there's a lot of nice parks there as well, where there's also like a lot of like student organization work going on, like, you know, being out in the open basically. So for example, I like where I'm a lot is like the Aalto test side, where we have like a community garden on campus and like building projects like also like related to sustainability again. But it's like just so nice that stuff like that is going on campus and you can have your favorite people and your favorite hobbies there basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that we already touched upon this topic, but if you can name one spot on campus, one thing about the campus, what that would be, like your favorite thing about it?
I would say, oh, that's a hard one.
It is.
Yeah, so many nice things. Yeah, maybe it's also like, it's probably Kipsari and like Wicked Rabbit, which is like another good student restaurant. And yeah, I really like those community gardens. I enjoy those a lot. Yeah.
I feel like my favorite thing about campus is the fact that you can, the fact that you can do anything and like eating cheap restaurants and stuff, but also you're doing everything surrounded by nature. Like if you want to, like there is the possibility other than taking class to relax, to like chill and have fun on campus and not just be there with the mind of like the focus on working and studying. You can also literally, like from the picture, I was studying like doing my things at the library, but I had a great view on nature and I could walk literally 1 minute and be inside nature and relax there. So that is nice, like the possibility to relax and be in a relaxed mood, even though you're on campus.
Okay, thank you, Valentin. Would you like to add something?
I guess my favorite is the facilities that we can, like there's really always a working sewing machine, and for fashion students that's a very big thing.
Great to hear. So we can move forward. And the thing in Finland is that students in Finland are entitled to many benefits. So the next topic we are going to discuss is housing and student benefits. So maybe someone can explain what kind of housing options are available on campus and in the city. For example, type, size, price, and how can you actually find your apartment?
Well, I could make like a 30-minute presentation just on that,
Sure.
because I wasn't very lucky with my housing at the very beginning. So I ended up moving 4 times in 1 year. There's two student unions. There's AYY and there's HOAS. And for AYY, you automatically have to join when you get into the university. And for HOAS, anyone who is officially a student in Finland is like automatically a part of it, basically. AYY is Aalto's student union, so that is specifically for Aalto students, and both of the associations have like basically 3 different housings. One is the studio type, where it's a 1-room little studio. That's the best. Everyone wants to have that. So it takes a bit of standing in line, and like sometimes you have to wait a year for it or something. It really depends. Like you can get very lucky, and you can also get unlucky with it. There's also shared apartments where you share with complete strangers. So that's a bit of a hit or miss, but those are very cheap rooms. And then there's an option to apply together with the person you already know for something called friends apartments.
Mhm.
And those have like a very short line, and like it's not as good as having your own flat, but it's much better than having to share with strangers. There's also family apartments, like if you have a kid or you're married or something, you can apply with those people for something that's like, I don't qualify for that, so I didn't think of it. And if you come from abroad, then you automatically then you for sure get a flat. Like there's not really, like if you study full time, for exchange students it's a bit harder sometimes, and you get like an extra urgency point if you're a first year student. My advice would be to apply for, like, really check where the flats are and only apply for ones that you can really live in. Because what I did is I applied for everything available. I was so worried I might not find something, and I took the first offer, and it was also very cheap. And then I really regretted it later because it was it was right across, like it was in Melonmäki. It was right across the city, and I had to sit on the metro for like 50 minutes every day back and forth. So that wasn't that good. And another thing is to make sure that you don't live next to the very loud student things, because like the like first year bachelor students that for moved out for the first time from home, they tend to go a bit crazy on weekdays, and that gets really on your nerves eventually. So if you get like if you get a flat that is at a good place, then it's pretty good. Like it costs half as much as regular rents all around city.
But I would also say, like, on this note, I would add that yeah, of course, like, don't put areas that you really wouldn't live in, but like as a first year when you're coming here, just take what you have at the first time, because sometimes the waiting list is a bit long, and if you reject an apartment, like a kind of apartment, you will have to wait in line again from the beginning. So it will take a long time to get an apartment. So at the beginning, I would say, yeah, don't take the apartments that are maybe too out of reach, but usually like it's pretty well connected. So most of the apartments, if you're not very unlucky, are reachable from campus. And I think it's better to take something than to be without a house at the beginning. But of course, yeah, just look out for the information. I was also very lucky, so I have nothing to complain with, but sometimes you can get unlucky and be in Valentin's situation, for example.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So that's why I said like apply for a lot of things for sure, but don't apply for everything, because then as a rule you're gonna get the worst one, because there's the like least people apply for it, then you're gonna get it
Yeah.
fastest.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like that's why you shouldn't apply for everything, because once you reject it, because if it's really not good and you reject it, you get to the bottom of all the waiting lines, because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you're not really in need of a flat if you can just
Yeah.
reject.
Yeah.
So that's but no one's forcing you to apply for every.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also a bit sorry.
So to summarize, like set your criteria right, apply for both and wait for both answers so that you can choose. And take the apartment, you can immediately reapply, just so that you have a shelter. But like to not make it look like, because it sounded a bit negative now about the apartments, like in general, like I think the state of the apartments, unless you really have a bad one,
Yeah.
like it's quite good, and they're doing a lot of renovation work, especially Huas right now, building a lot of new apartments. So I think like you'll really enjoy the apartments there, unless you have like a Monday model. And usually they're unfurnished, so it's also something you have to keep in mind. So it's not like something like in America, for example. I think they're furnished. You have to buy your own stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. But there's also like some pretty cool neighborhood chats where people, like when you move out, you also have to bring everything with you, and people don't always want to do that, so they can just offer furniture for free in the building chat. So that can be super amazing. I furnished my entire room like that. And there's recycling centers and secondhand shops all over Helsinki, and those are pretty amazing too, and very cheap. I think I spent like €100 to furnish my room. And
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to furnish the room, like on a budget. And there is also like a blog post that I wrote if you're more interested on that is on Unipati.
Yeah, I think that you covered everything. I don't need to ask anything else. But yeah, to wrap it up, it's quite easy to get on campus because we have a metro line here, we have buses. Sometimes it can take like one change of the buses or something if you're really, really far away, but it's super kind of easy to move. Valentin moved 4 times, so it's doable. You don't need to worry. And maybe we can quickly go over what the Frank app is and how you can use it, and something about the student benefits and discounts, just like really shortly.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Okay. Who's?
Okay, Michael, you can go with this.
Sure. So Frank App is basically your student card in a digital form, where you can like get students benefit, first of all, from student restaurants at the discounted half price, but also a lot of shops offer restaurants offer discounts, many like 10%, sometimes even more. Like you have like in the app, you can scroll through and find for whole Finland basically discounts. Yeah, so that's Frank. For HSL, HSL, I don't know, but it's like whole, how's it called? Metropolitan region public transport. And as a student, you're entitled to get like half price, I think. So like per month, that's like maybe now 35 euros. And you can choose like always 2 zones at the same time for that price. So for example, AB, which would be Helsinki mid-Espoo, or like BC, which would be more Espoo around Helsinki. So yeah, so that's the stuff you get as a student.
I would say really like a good tip is always asking if there is any student discount when you get to shops or restaurants, because sometimes you don't even realize that there is discounts on everything basically. Even shops in the city center. So.
Yeah, definitely Google the word for student discount when you don't know Finnish yet, because they're shush about it. They don't.
Yeah, good tip for that. I always forget to show my Frank app, so not using all the opportunities I have. But now I can move forward to career opportunities. So students can explore different kinds of work opportunities already during their studies. And it would be nice if you could share, is it possible to combine studies with work? And do you work at the moment?
Yes, I'm on that picture. It is difficult to combine studies with work, actually, because it's actually full-time studies if you do graduate in the given 2 years. So I work nights on the weekends at the moment, so that's a bit much. But if you only want to work something like, I don't know, 20 hours a month, if that's like enough for you to get some extra money and you don't have to rely fully on yourself working, then that can be very comfortably done. One thing that is a bit difficult as a foreigner is to find, if you don't speak Finnish, to find a job where you don't have to speak Finnish. That is not easy. That can be difficult.
Yeah, I feel like it depends on the field. Probably most of the work of the jobs that require some communication, it's of course like you need to have a basic level of Finnish, but there is also many opportunities in like with they just require English. But yeah, definitely not enough time if you're doing full-time studies to do a full-time job, or even like a part-time 20 hours a week job. That can be really tough. But yes, like it's possible to do part-time jobs, like small ones during your studies. It's just about managing your time, and depends, of course, on how you get to manage your time. Yes. Milica, we cannot hear you. I think you have
Oh, sorry.
mute. Yeah. Okay.
So thank you for your answers about the previous question. Maybe we can just quickly share with people how did you find the jobs, where you can learn more about it? Are there any fairs or maybe websites, or how was it for you? For example, with the squad, how you learn about the squad?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a good tip can be checking the Aalto open position page, because there is like many open positions for students to work for the university, or like, but also on other platform you can find like part-time jobs. I only relied on that one because like I found my job for the Aalto squad, for example, on there. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, either you do the whole academic direction and go into Aalto, for example. Like there's also a lot of like research assistant positions open for like some research projects, like teaching assistants and stuff. There's really a lot going on. And yeah, the good thing is that often, unless like it's, for example, some user-centered projects where they involve Finns or have Finnish clients, it usually doesn't depend on Finnish language. So that's really good plus. When you go into the job market, yeah, like better prepare yourself to learn Finnish. But I mean, there's also like, especially because like the Finnish job market required like, it's like built up on like the Bush, how's it called? Like Bush telephone, basically, you know, like you have to have like a lot of contacts who bring you into like their businesses, basically. So it relies a lot of that on that, and you can just talk to people, ask them, have a coffee with them when you find an interesting company that brings you like so far here in Finland, and maybe then you don't even have to like speak Finnish at the end. You know, when they know that you're a professional, do your thing.
Yeah, thank you for your answers, and I think that now we can discuss fun stuff. So Aalto is very famous for the student life here. So maybe you can tell us something about what is Finnish student culture like? Are there any associations, volunteering events, sports, or are you part of any of these? Maybe Valentin, you can start.
Well, I feel mixed about it. So first I thought it was pretty cute, and it's very reminding me of like American student culture. But I feel like this kind of like running around with the overall and collecting patches is something that is main. I feel like it's more for the Finnish bachelor studies. But I did find there's also student unions. I found one student union in the Helsinki University, because you can also like apply for other universities unions as well if it's very specifically your interest. that is more that fits more. So it did actually work in the end. I find it pretty cute that Finnish people have to like, it's very hard to get them to go for a beer together. You have to apply for a student union and have like a specific common interest to like get people to go somewhere together at the same time. So I think it really helps, this kind of structure helps breaking the ice, because it's just very like I feel like just the social norms are very different in talking. Like you walk up to someone in a party, they look at you weird, but then you go to the sauna and sit naked in the same room. It's
Yeah.
just very, it's a very interesting cultural experience in general, the whole thing.
And
Yeah, I would
just
say
what
there's
are your impressions? You're new here.
yeah, I would say yeah, there are more opportunities to have like social experiences and stuff than I was expecting. Of course, like like as Valentin was saying, in Finnish culture, it's not common to be like super open and super talkative with other people. But at the same time, they have all the opportunities to be that, like they're always organizing parties, or like in general gatherings, or like for example, even in my building, it's a house building, and they're organizing every month or even more some, I don't know, board games night or something. Like there's always an event or an occasion where you can go there and meet people and find your friends and like do social things. But also many events in the orientation week, for example. So yeah, there's definitely stuff to do, and the Finnish culture, the Finnish student culture, is very active and full of traditions and fun things to discover. But you can find your own way to like your own way to participate in that, like how much you feel comfortable in being active and not being active. I think it's very personal, the choice.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of, yeah, I can agree for the most of the things that you said. It's very exciting, especially during your first day here when you're welcome. But we will discuss that one later on. And maybe Michael can tell us more about what do you do in your free time, because I know that you are outdoor sportsy bike cycling man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, recently, like I found a nice cycling club in uni, so that's amazing. Yeah, I was also like just coming back to the student culture real quick. I was kind of weirded out at first as well, because also in the pandemic, you find it was all a bit distant. But there's so many little subject clubs about everything. Subject clubs like clubs about all the hobbies and stuff. So yeah, I now have like a cycling club where I cycle every week. When I'm not doing it alone, I have like also I'm participating in the Aalto test site, which you see here, where we like have permaculture, we're grilling, we're like in the left corner you see a shed that I built last year, so that's really fun. Yeah, and then also a lot of trekking and hiking. I'm also part of the Aalto Sustainability Club, which is also organizing a lot of events and movie nights and cooking events. So that's stuff that I usually do, I would say. Yeah. And
Valentin, would you like to add something to your free time?
Oh, I have very little free time.
That's why I asked.
So I don't have time to be part of like much clubs. Like there's that one club in Helsinki University that I'm a part of, and I'm active in it like maybe once every 2 months or something. It's really not often that I have proper free time, but I think it's kind of like funny and adorable how many different kind of clubs are there. Like there's a cocktail making club, or one of my classmates is instructor for the pole dance club. So we did like the fashion department kind of event and had like one pole dancing session that was pretty nice. Yeah. So there's like a lot of free things to do around university, but I spend most of my free time with people that I know from outside of the university in Helsinki. Yeah.
It's amazing to hear like all these different things that you do and how much variety and how much options actually you have here in Aalto. Like you can hang out with your friends, you can be a part of the organizations, and it's very good to have opportunity to choose. And now we can actually talk more about Aalto community, because Aalto is home to a diverse and multidisciplinary community of students, staff, and faculty as well. So maybe Francesco can start with this one, because I believe it's still fresh in your memory. So how were you welcome to the community? Did you have
Yeah, I would say I arrived 2 weeks before like all the orientation week started in Finland. So I had time to like furnish my room and everything, like get settled in. And then when all the like the orientation week started, there were lots of events, and like I feel like every association was trying to organize something during that week to make them be like, I don't know, noticed by new students. And so there were definitely lots of events, and anytime that I was, I don't know, going around campus, there was something happening and something changing and something that was really really interesting and active. And I was very well welcomed, I would say. I had the possibility to participate to and a lot of events like this one in the picture, for example, was like during orientation week there was a kind of a fair event in the garden behind the undergraduate center here on campus. So and it was completely free, like you just have to go there, and like you got to know associations and who was behind them, what they were doing, and like enjoy the time there. So yeah, it was very, very fun. And yeah.
And I gotta say, I was actually so jealous of this year's students who came this year, because I didn't have any of that because of obvious reasons, Corona and stuff. Yeah, so I don't know, like, would be best to just leave it at Francesco's answer, but, like, yeah, like personally, I had like a horrible time. Like, it was like mostly like spending my time in the apartment on Zoom. But that's really not what it's like usually is. Yeah, like you have so many things going on campus all the time. Every organization is trying to, like, you know, present themselves to you, and you drink a lot and meet so many people already. It's crazy good. Yeah.
It's very nice. So let's hope in the future it stays like it was this year, because for me it was a really positive experience. I also had a previous experience in another university in Finland during Corona time, and the orientation week was on Zoom, and it was just stressful and getting a lot of information. I mean, it was also a bit like overwhelming here, but because there was so many information, so many new things, but overwhelming in a positive sense, I would say.
Yeah, campus went crazy this year, like music and parties for a week straight in front of my apartment here.
Oh,
I had entire DJ set here. Yeah. So when I would like to ask you, so is it easy to get to know people here?
No.
From your experience? No?
No, I
would say yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I was in a lucky, unique position with my classmates, because we were all like, we were basically like 15 people coming to join into this very small department. Like fashion department is not that big, like they don't take that many students, and we all just moved to study here, and we were kind of like relying on each other for company. But to get close to a Finnish person is a very, very big task, I would say. Like, to me it took like 8 months to kind of like build a solid friends group and have like my own space and own places and like actual plans for the weekend. Like that was the weirdest to me. I lived in Berlin, so I've got used to like things constantly happening like 24/7. Here, if you don't like specifically plan on a weekend plan, nothing's gonna happen to you. which was like, I had to learn that at the beginning.
It's true, because I had a completely opposite experiences basically. So I guess it's really it changes. Of course, like with Finnish people, it's harder to like, it's commonly harder to get close to and build a stronger relationship, I would say. But there is so much like of international students culture here that you can meet a lot of people through events and through things. Like if you're just proactive on and interested and open on events and things that maybe you never tried before. For example, I like I think it was my first week during the orientation week, I was invited to this salsa class on campus, and of course I never did salsa before, and I was not even like a fan of Latin dances or stuff, but I was like, okay, let's try. And I got to know some people there, and I think it was like also the fact that the course is like the program is accepting less students than other programs. It helped me to get closer to the other students in my program, especially the international ones, because we're doing the same experience. We're just moved in the city, so it was easier to have something to talk about in common. But yeah, I feel like it was not that hard for me because I got there were a lot of events, but I also got the chance to be in a small program where it was easier to bond.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear all these different experiences. I mean, we're all individuals and it will be different for all of us. For example, I didn't make many friends in architecture, but I hang out with lots of people from other departments, which is also very cool. You learn about, I don't know, other people's studies and perspective. And Michael, would you like to add something?
No, not really. Like, yeah, but I'm completely with you, Melissa, because it depends also like so much on what you're studying. Like sometimes they like, for example, in IDBM, they have like that own subject club called Klubi, and they organize like so many things, especially in the beginning. And you immediately just start to make friends. Like in creative sustainability, however, it was like the opposite. Like we didn't really have, that going on in the beginning. So I kind of felt lost in the first half year, but it changed really quickly then. Yeah. But I also made a huge mistake in the first half year. I was like connecting with that group of Erasmus students, and that's the worst mistake that you can do, because they're all going to be gone in a couple of months. It's
super sad.
Yeah.
Okay, and can you tell me what is it like to be an international student in Aalto in Finland in terms of expectations and versus your reality? Did you expect something more or less? Did Aalto face your expectations?
Not specifically Aalto, but Finland presents itself as something that is like a smooth ride in terms of paperwork and banking and healthcare and everything. And if you're essentially born into that system, then yes. But as a foreigner, it is very difficult to get all your paper. I still don't have a bank account. Like it is very, very difficult in that sense, because they are like, oh, you don't have a personal identification number. We can't do anything. You can't take a breath without it. Like I almost couldn't get my HSL card without it. But that is something that you have to stand in line for. And what I find incredibly weird is that as an EU student, you still have to formally apply to be allowed to stay here, which is super weird, because by EU law, they are not even allowed to reject you. Like you could present anything, you have the right to be here, but you still have to wait 1.5 months for them to be like, oh yeah, we are a part of the EU. It's like, it is very, very difficult in terms of that. And I had a very high expectation to like diversity and like I feel like the country itself is slightly more right leaning than I expected or imagined or hoped. Like that was a bit of a shock or weird. But yeah, so that there's like room to improve there for sure.
Yeah, paperwork takes forever, but I read recently in one of the chats that actually government is pressing on these people to try to make these process faster for international. So hopefully that will be better.
I hope so, because like it was a bit of a ride to like get through all the paperwork, understand it, but there is also a lot of activity on that to make it easier for new students. For example, in the like arts department this year, we got a book explaining all the things that you should do when you arrive to Finland, and like an introduction on student culture and everything. And there was also like a specific part for all the paperwork, how you should do it, and what do you need to do basically. So like students are trying to help other students to get through the paperwork, because we'll all have at one point, and it's a bit confusionary, I understand it, but
Yeah,
it's also doable. Like,
I got a feeling those people who are like now participating in this webinar, they have a very good chance of making everything right, because yeah, I was not that kind of person, and it really you can really tell usually. But yeah, like when you don't ask beforehand, or like, let's turn it around, when you ask people and you get your processes straight and what you have to do, I think it's possible to do everything beforehand. Like applying for like how's it called, strong authentication thing, getting your bank account and stuff. Yeah,
an important tip is always ask questions. Yeah,
be proactive.
Be proactive, ask questions, and like you will find your answers. People will always try to help you.
Yeah.
We're open through that.
Okay, thank you. And we have our last question of the day, and that is one of the most frequently asked. Is it possible to survive without knowing any Finnish here?
Definitely, I would say.
It's possible to survive.
To survive. Of course, like it would be nicer to know it, but like I have not even the basics of Finnish, and I already spent last year 6 months here in Finland, and it was completely okay without knowing even the basics. And now I'm not having that big problem. Of course, if you want to work and if you want to like continue your life here after your studies, and you want to do something else apart from studying, and getting out of the international student life bubble, then maybe it's better to get to know some Finnish. But you, like, most of the people know Finnish and know English, and you can get around with that basically.
Yeah, so survive, yes, but outside of the international student bubble, it makes socializing quite difficult.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Sometimes you end up being just that one foreigner that all the Finnish people have to speak English because of to be polite. And I have noticed that many Finnish people are shy about their English skills, and it has come up in conversation in many situations, and many people are like, now I'm just not comfortable, like I had to have classes in English, and now I'm in a bar and I want to have free time, and I feel like when I have to speak English, then I have to like work again, like it feels like a lot of work to them. So that can make things a bit difficult. Like I have a job where I don't speak Finnish, and I interact with people all the time because I'm bartending, and then we have a group chat of all the workers, and that is completely in Finnish, because they're like, we're not gonna switch to English for just 2 people. So that's like a big part of the reality of having like an everyday life. But for 2 years, it's definitely doable to not speak Finnish.
And I also feel like I completely agree. Like, it can be like this harder to socialize with Finnish people if you don't know Finnish. But yeah, and it also depends on the expectations you have. Like if you come from some countries where like, I don't know, me coming from Italy, where it's really, really hard for people even to know English on the daily basis when you meet people on the streets. Like it was pretty impressive to see that basically everyone knows at least the basics of English and understands you. If you go to shops and everything and you speak English, it's natural. But of course, it's not the first language here, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I can agree with you. But the good thing is that all the administrational stuff, at least for me, everyone knew English perfectly and they could help me with it. So you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, maybe for some other
The only thing administration-wise is Kela is horrible with English.
Okay,
like they have that online system and like everything's either Finnish or Swedish, and then all of a sudden you get like an invoice, like you didn't pay. Why? I don't know, it's all in Finnish.
Yeah,
it happened to me.
Yeah.
Once, twice.
I'm actually now on the list, like, how's it called? Like being, when you didn't pay a lot and then, you know, you can't make credits. Yeah, like your credit score is bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
Oh
because
God.
I can't make a phone plan for 2 years now in Finland.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
wow, that might have happened to me too now then, I think. But because they sent me a bill with a barcode on it in Finnish, and I was just like, what do I do with this?
Yeah, but I mean, a good tip is Google Translate app. Like, lets you just take a picture of the thing and it will translate you. And this saved my life basically. Also, in supermarkets, it's super useful because they don't have anything in English on the packagings or anything. So if you want to understand a bit what you're buying in supermarkets, Google Translate app is really it.
Yeah, thank you for this long conversation. And now we can actually move to Q&A. So I guess that our participants are shy today. So we received one question as I can see. And that is, what is your favorite course? So maybe you can share that with us. And people, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and we will try to answer as many as we can. But yeah, we can start with the question we got. So what has been your favorite course so far, Francesco? You're the new one?
Well, for me, I just started just 4 courses, so I don't have a lot of choice. But I would say, like, I'm doing this course that is called Introduction to Information Design, and it's been really interesting. It's like basically all about really introducing the subject of information design and giving us the tools and the materials to be able to design data visualizations and graphics and tables, etc., and giving you like us the theory and the basics. But we also have this small assignments during the course that lets us soak in what we are learning. And also there is one bigger assignment at the end that, I mean, it's like in 2 weeks basically now, and it's a bigger project, but it's also very chill and relaxing, and at the same time a lot of information. Like, I would love to have more time just to read back the lectures and watch back the slides, because it's dense of information, but it's been really interesting. So yeah, I would say this one between the 4 that I'm doing.
Yeah, and actually you're doing your thesis now, so you already done a bunch of courses. What would you say that it was the best one that you had?
Yeah, I think the one that that interested me most in, like, you know, expanding my knowledge is definitely the systems thinking course that is like core to the my studies. It's just like so interesting, like that whole way of thinking and stuff you learn quite a lot. But I think when it comes to the courses that I had most fun, were like the CS and IDBM capstone courses, which are like courses that are like having like 10 to 15 ECTS and are like kind of having the purpose to summarize the whole study program and the learnings in one course. And they're like really project based, and usually you work with a company or organization as a partner. So it's like real life problems that you're solving. I can apply all my design thinking knowledge basically. And yeah, in my case, I was like also able to travel to Nepal and to South Africa for it, which was super cool. And yeah, so this definitely helped me the most. Yeah, like especially those long-term courses, also like in general studio courses, I think are like the most beneficial in my opinion, when it comes to like applying your knowledge and to actually like intrinsically, like, how's it called, like keeping on to the knowledge basically, so that you stick to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Valentin, would you like to add your course, your favorite course?
Well, I actually have a lot that I like. I'm just gonna try to say just 2. I really loved the Chem Arts course. That was amazing. And then there's a course that's called Fashion Communication by Anna-Marie Venska, and that was also very good. That was very insightful and nice.
Okay, and we received one question in the meantime. So that one asked about what are the professors at Aalto like?
So Aalto has this whole like I think all the professors, like, it has this kind of they are not so big on the whole hierarchy feeling. So you really feel like you're working with your professors, clearly there's a structure, but they are very friendly and very upfront.
Yeah, from my experience, it's also like this. Like they're, you feel like you're on the same level. Maybe, of course, they're like, you know, that this is the professor and then there's the students, but at the same time, when you're working, you feel like on projects, you feel like they're there to help you and like to give you the right encouragement, like to work and to study and to improve. Like, yeah, there's no such thing as a hierarchy, like strong hierarchy. Like you get called by your name, your first name. It's really a chill situation. At least comparing to Italy, where it's like your number and they're like this unreachable person that you feel like afraid of. Here it's much more friendly.
Yeah, I can also agree more with that. I was very surprised with that like system that we have, that it's like very low hierarchy and your teacher is actually your mentor and they just help you go through this school and all the challenges. And yeah, I can also confirm that for the architecture. And yeah, I think that these were all the questions that we received today. And we can actually move forward to wrap up this session. So what is next? So for you guys, apply to Aalto between 1st of December of 2022 and 2nd of January of 2023. And if you have any additional questions about applying to Aalto regarding the admissions side, there will be a webinar on this Tuesday. You can send also an email to that if you have any specific questions regarding the application. So the email is admissions@aalto.fi. And then in the meantime, if you have any questions that you were too shy to ask today, please contact us on our Unibuddy. So all 4 of us are all Aalto squad members, and we are available on Unibuddy for you at all times. Also, we have Coffee with the Squad Friday sessions. So every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. We gather together like 3 of us and then students, and we just chat and have a cup of coffee. And that's where you can ask all your questions regarding our life here and study programs and courses and whatever comes to your mind. And then for the latest news, upcoming events and useful links, check out aalto.fi/studies. You can see us from time to time, I mean, every Tuesday on Aalto's Instagram page doing My Days. So if you want to see how one typical day of the Aalto student looks like, you can pay attention to that. And
I will be there tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, tomorrow. Who is you doing it tomorrow?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm doing
Francesco
my day tomorrow. So if you want to
Amazing.
know some updates on student life, tomorrow I will be there
Yeah,
on
he will
the
be answering
Aalto University.
questions as
Instagram
well through the
account.
chat and everything. So also there is another upcoming webinar, which is called Nordic Masters in Visual Studies and Art Education. It will be held on 10th of October at 2 to 3 p.m. Finnish time. And you can register via a link that is sent to the chat. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for your attendance today. It was amazing to see you from all over the world and these many people joining us. And we hope to see you on campus next year. And if you see me around, just invite to say hi. And yeah, let's stay in touch. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks, you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.